everyone. We're here again at the Wake Forest Senior Center with Brian Solich and Ryan Nemitz. We're here for part 2, and today we're going to talk about changes, RMD changes and strategies. So if you've missed part 1, you probably want to go back and look at that first, and then come back and join us for part 2. Okay, gentlemen, with that.
Here's a quick summary of part 1. Most people have tax-deferred accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, and most of them know they have to take a required minimum distribution. Well, the rule now changed starting in January 2020. Instead of doing that required age 70 and a half, the year they turned 70 and a half, Congress changed it to age 72. Not a huge change, but it did bump it up a year and a half. So some people can wait to 72 if they want. And also because of the COVID-19 crisis, the CARES Act was passed, which basically waived all required minimum distribution requirements in the year 2020. So we had a question to be considered last session. Is it always wise to wait until age 72 because the IRS is allowing you to wait? But even 2020, skip it entirely. Is that wise, or is it better to start earlier? You can start as early as 59 and a half and start taking your money out. So the question is being answered in 2 sessions. This session, we're going to take an example of a couple whose primary goal is leave money to heirs. They've got good income, they want to leave money to heirs, they have this tax-deferred $500,000 account. What's the best strategy? Wait till age 72, skip it this year, and start taking it now. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
So as Brian said, that the question is leaving money to heirs through an IRA or other qualified account an efficient strategy? And we've got 2 problems. The first problem is 100% of the account value will be taxed because IRAs, 401ks, at least the regular 401ks and the regular part of other retirement accounts are all tax-deferred accounts, and ultimately, at some point in time, somebody's got to pay the tax on it. Okay, whether it's if you take the money out, or whether it's if your heirs or your beneficiaries of those accounts take the money, they're going to have to pay the tax on it. One thing that I look at too with that is that looking at the beneficiaries of your IRAs, are your heirs or your beneficiaries in higher tax brackets than what you are too? So if you pass the money to your heirs, they're going to end up paying a higher level of tax at their tax rates versus what you might pay at your tax rate. So that's one thing to look at with that. Problem 2 is that the stretch IRA.
Can I jump in there, Ryan? So the chart in front of you also shows the history of tax rates. The highest tax rate of the last century. Hopefully it's large enough to you to look at that. Starting in 1913, you can see how it shot up, and we won't go through all the details here. But look where we are now. That goes to 2018, but it's basically where we are now, 2020. We are at really low historical rates.
Wow.
And we've had a lot of talks in some of these YouTube videos we've done. Taxes, there's a very good chance of them going up. Well, in 2026, they're scheduled to go back up to where they were prior to Congress lowering them starting in 2018. They lowered them for an 8-year period. Scheduled to go back up. And then we look at the government debt, Medicare, Social Security, all these issues we have going on, plus with this COVID-19 crisis. We're filming this in May 2020. They're adding trillions of dollars to our debt, for the country. So most people are looking and saying, wow, we're probably going to see higher taxing maybe for many years to come. And just look at that graph. How high could they be? We'll just give you one statistic. During World War II and Korean War, the highest federal tax bracket was over 90%. Wow. Right now it's 39.6. Another statistic, during JFK, his years before he lowered taxes, the middle bracket was 69%. Isn't that crazy, Jenny?
That is. It makes me feel like I got to hurry up and do something.
All right. So even if you're looking at your children, maybe your children are earning a lot of money and they're at a low bracket, you don't know down the road when they inherit it what the tax rates are going to be, so forth. Could be through the roof, and maybe they're only at 12% now, and they could be 33% down the road. So a lot of question marks there.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, that in 2026, once everything sunsets based on tax rates now, we have no idea what it's going to look like after 2020, so we're 2026 and on. And, with all of the stimulus things that's been done now, with all the COVID-19, they're going to have to get the money from somewhere. And it's just a matter of how they choose to garnish that money to pay for all the things that they're doing now. So, but we just don't know what that's going to look like as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the general consensus is tax rates are going to go up, back up, and we just don't know to what extent that's going to be. So, but problem number two is that the stretch IRA is dead, and that's as of January 1st, 2020, because the Secure Act was passed December 20th of 2019, that then became effective January 1, 2020. And for those of you who are not familiar with the stretch IRA terminology, that basically gave non-spousal heirs the ability to stretch out the taking out inherited retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, etc., over their remaining life expectancy, okay? And I say non-spousal beneficiaries because spousal beneficiaries do have some more favorable rules that they can use, but non-spousal beneficiaries do not. So that's why
Which usually means kids.
Right, kids. Or other non-kids or anybody that's not a spouse. But
Dogs.
well, not dogs, not dogs. Anybody with a social security number. So how about that? So but non-spouses under the Secure Act, non-spousal beneficiaries cannot do the stretch IRA anymore. They now have to take it over a 10-year period of time from the death of the original account holder with that. So you're looking at taking it from maybe a potential of 20 or 30 years down to a 10-year window with that. So you're looking at these heirs potentially having a much higher rate of tax on these inherited retirement accounts because of that reason and having to take it out over a much shorter period of time.
We covered that in one of the earlier sessions. It's great for the IRS because it's estimated it's going to bring them billions of dollars of tax revenue. That's why they did it. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not good for the average person who wants to leave money to their heirs and so forth. It just kind of makes that not a very
gray area.
Right.
Yeah.
So the conclusion on that, leaving tax-deferred accounts to heirs is not a tax-efficient strategy. We'll say in most situations, because there could be occasional exception, but in most situations, you want to leave money to your kid, that's one of your goals there, leaving it in those accounts is not the best way to go. So Ryan, what's a better way? Is there a better way to leave money to heirs?
Well, and I think, we talked in the last session about the Roth IRAs. And the thing about Roth IRAs is, one, they still don't have, for you, they don't have required minimum distribution requirements. But when the heirs inherit those Roth IRAs, there are required minimum distribution requirements for your heirs with those Roth IRAs. But the great thing is that in most circumstances, I don't want to say all circumstances, but most circumstances, you having to withdraw or your heirs having to withdraw money from inherited Roth IRAs, there is no tax. Money withdrawn from inherited Roth IRAs. So you've got that benefit that then provides tax-free income to your heirs instead of them potentially paying tax at a higher level of tax rate on that. Then looking at other tax-favored accounts too, cash value of life insurance, and then other potential tax-free or tax-favored accounts can definitely be useful as you take out the funds earlier and then pass to the heirs the tax-free type accounts with that. So
we got Joe and Jane Smith back here. So Ryan, why don't you walk us through that example again, Joe and Jane?
Joe and Jane Smith, they're a fairly interesting couple, and they have a lot of challenges with their planning. So it's good to look at them. So Joe and Jane Smith, again, at this point in time, they're age 66. Thankfully, they're retired at this point in time, or fortunately, they're retired, right? So they got $500,000 in the IRA, excellent income. They don't need the IRA money at this point in time. And their goal is to leave that IRA money to their children. Well, Joe and Jane's current tax bracket is 12%. 2026 is going back up, and they would end up being in that 25% bracket. The children's future tax brackets, well, you just don't know what that's going to be. And that's going to depend on their income. Are they married? Do they have joint income? Are they going to end up being in those higher tax brackets at that point in time? And the likelihood is, especially if their children are younger, definitely younger in age than they are, they got more earnings potential than what Joe and Jane are going to have once they inherit that or inherit those IRAs. So,
Plus, as you mentioned, tax brackets could be way up.
yeah, we just don't know.
Well, here's something else. But if you refer back to one of the other sessions that we had with Annette Rhodes, who's an attorney, I mean, as a parent with children that are in two very different financial situations, it's definitely a conversation that I'm hearing maybe you need to have regarding both children. It's automatic that we as parents, I think, want to say, I want to do everything equally. But what I'm hearing you say now is maybe that's not the better, really, choice in the end result for my children.
Right.
You know,
I agree.
there's nothing that I could do could make it equal if one of them's at one tax bracket and the other is a way lower tax bracket.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point with that. Mm-hmm. And I guess, really moving it on that point, moving it to tax-free type income accounts can really level that playing field between your children. So an option to consider is that Joe could withdraw up to $81,000 a year. We kind of used that and looked at that in session 1. Pay only 22% in tax and place the net withdrawal amount, of course, if he wants to plan for his taxability, in a tax-free account. Now, whether it's a Roth IRA, whether it's a cash value life insurance, or other type of vehicle that would generate tax-free income, and then basically now pass that money to the heirs, where the heirs are not potentially going to have to pay tax on that at their higher level of tax brackets with that.
So Ryan already mentioned the Roth IRA, and then we also again talked about both of these in session 1. So the cash value life policy, some advantages that are some people like in terms of addition to the Roth IRA advantage, as far as tax-free money. Leaving money to heirs, cash value life insurance policies have a tax-free death benefit. And it's usually much higher than the money you put in. That's how life insurance policies work. So someone's main goal is to leave a tax-free death benefit to heirs. Quite a few people are utilizing these permanent cash value life insurance policies because it's guaranteed to leave a tax-free death benefit on the day they die, and usually again it multiplies the money. It also has typically you can add on for no charge a long-term care rider. So parents are concerned, wow, all my money could go to a nursing home. Okay, one way of planning for that is to have that long-term care rider on to preserve some of those assets. So Ed Slott, we mentioned this in one of our other videos. He is probably the best known CPA in the country, even better known than Ryan. Okay, and there's not many CPAs that are really well. You don't see him in the newspapers all the time. He's written a ton of books. You can look him up on YouTube, PBS specials, Ed Slott, S-L-O-T-T. Does a great job. He said in a recent article that cash value life insurance policies are the new stretch IRA. Okay. Meaning, stretch IRA is dead. His recommendation, hey, if you can qualify and it makes sense, sit down with your advisors. It's something to really consider as a replacement for what happened, stretch IRA being dead. So you have two great options. Interesting enough, same options that we said for part 1. If someone's goal is, I need this money to live on, my IRA money to live on, two great options to consider, Roth IRA, cash value life policies. Second person said, well, I don't really need the money, I want to leave mainly the kids. Same options, Roth IRA, cash value life policies. So you can utilize both of those, and the end result is what, Ryan, in this case?
And the end result is that Joe and Jane pay 22% tax instead of 25% tax, and then can possibly empty out, Joe could possibly empty out his entire IRA before 2026 and leave his children 100% tax-free accounts with that. And the one thing that I just want to remind you guys of is that, and what Brian had alluded to in session one is be sure, but before you do any of this or make any decisions, you sit down with your investment professional and your tax professional to make sure that it's the right move for you, because everybody's situation is different.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. One thing that we have found at the senior center and working with different age populations, and as we observe and see the predictions of what's going to happen to keep aging populations sustainable, it's really important that you sit down and you have these conversations and include an intergenerational family member. Because just like today, a perfect example, my two children are very different. And I really do need to start including them and more. And I think so many of us as aging adults haven't done that. We just assume we write a will, it's all going to be taken care of, and it's ever changing. I think you're going to get a lot of mileage out of this, and I really appreciate both of you being here. There's a lot that people need to hear but maybe haven't heard it.
And I would just say with that, don't wait until it's too late to start planning that. Because if you wait too late, then not necessarily you, but your children could be caught in a not advantageous situation when that comes.
Do we call that a pickle?
I guess.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you for leading this charge. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
blessings to all of you.